And welcome to Off the Dome Sports. My name is Sean Militello, and I'm joined by special guest and our friend, Mr. Bob Rose from Sports Illustrated. He covers the New Orleans Saints, the Saints News Network, and he's also the co-host of Bayou Blitz podcast as well. Who do you do that podcast with again?
I do it with my editor for the Saints News Network, Kyle Mosley.
Okay.
I'm going to bow my head in shame a little bit though, because we have not done an official full Bayou Blitz podcast since last off season, right after the draft. We do. Brendan Boylan and myself will do Saints pregame and Saints halftime reports. Kyle and I will jump on periodically, during the week to recap any breaking news. But yeah, as far as a full-fledged podcast, we haven't done anything in quite some time. But for fans of it, I do promise you, I will get it rolling again. We'll have something pre-draft, during the draft, and post-draft, and then I plan on getting it rolling again on a weekly basis just before the start of the regular season.
And absolutely, and I know y'all two are always busy on the Saints News Networks. I always see y'all posting articles that you guys write. You just post one about Marquez Callaway,
Mm-hmm.
um, and you also just post one about backup options for Jameis Winston. Now, as everyone may know, that we do not have Deshaun Watson as our quarterback. That did not go through as planned, as we wanted to, as the Saints wanted to, chasing after him. And he pulls off a shocker. Instead of picking the Atlanta Falcons, which was the front runner for the last week or so of his sweepstakes, and then out of nowhere he picks the Browns, $230 million guaranteed. Maybe that's part of the reason why he picks the Browns. But we go from that to now to a very quiet free agency for the Saints. I know we signed Marcus May. We signed Street from his last name is Street, isn't it? From the 49ers.
Yes.
Defensive tackle. And then we lose Terran Armstead, which was suspected, and then we lose Marcus Williams. Now, some would say was a very offseason that the Saints would not want. But I'm here today to tell people that not to panic, because I think these moves were expected, and even without Deshaun Watson, even if we weren't even in the pursuit of him, I think losing guys like Terran Armstead and Marcus Williams might have been in the plans for this offseason. What do you think about that?
Hey, Sean, I couldn't agree more. As a matter of fact, as soon as Ryan Ramczyk signed his contract extension at the beginning of the 2021 season, I knew and was saying very publicly right then and since then that Terron Armstead would no longer be a New Orleans Saint after 2021. It wasn't in the finances. In the NFL, fans, whether we like it or not, the NFL is a business. Players understand that. Coaches, general managers, they certainly understand it. And it just boiled down to a business decision. We were hearing within the last week and a half that it would be, that Terron Armstead would consider coming back in the right situation, maybe for a hometown discount. And I think that was possible, but Miami just came after him with too much money. I don't begrudge Terron that at all. I wish him luck. But the Saints have in-house options where they could shuffle that offensive line, and as long as they stay healthy, still be very, very good as a unit. And there's also tackles that are going to be available in the draft if the Saints pursue that as a first round or second round possibility. I know that it causes a lot of fans to cringe, myself included. I think there are other higher priorities for this team. But my point is, in agreement with you, losing Terron, while it always stings to lose a great person and a great player. I believe that the Saints planned for that contingency all along.
And absolutely, in looking at, and I'm sorry, I was wondering what was playing while you were talking. I apologize for that, and but I got I got it off. But yeah, and you look at Ryan Ramczyk. $60 million guaranteed when we did sign an extension with him. And you look at what Terran Armstead got, about over $40 million guaranteed. That would be hard for any team to hold on one offensive line, and especially for Terran Armstead, for a guy who is extremely tough, and he's going to be missed. But a guy who hasn't been consistently healthy all the time, and that's why he is tough, because he does go play with a lot of injuries, but he's also missed time because of injuries, and he's missed a good bit of time. So I just don't think it was worth it to sign him to over $40 million guaranteed. And you look at guys, Ryan Ramczyk might move over to left tackle. That's a possibility. Or, James Hurst, they might feel comfortable with him at left tackle. Or Landon Young, a rookie we drafted, in the 5th round out of Kentucky? Sixth round out of Kentucky. And then you also got Ethan Greenrich. He's also a possibility. And you do got guys in the draft, like you mentioned. Trevor Penning out of Northern Iowa is a guy I like a lot. But it just all depends. Personally, I would like to see what Ryan Ramczyk can do on the left side. That was his natural position in college. Even his days before he transferred to Wisconsin. I understand he was in a Division II school before transferring to Wisconsin, but he's played in big-time football at Wisconsin at left tackle, and we all know Wisconsin produces these offensive linemen. So I would have no doubt he can go over to the left side. I don't know if that's what they're going to do, but it's certainly a possibility. And would you say it's easier to do that and then find your replacement for Ryan Ramczyk on the right side?
Yeah, I do. Because assuming you have a right-handed quarterback, and most NFL quarterbacks are, that's why the left tackle position is so valued and thusly so highly paid and sought after in high rounds of the NFL draft. I look at it this way. Like you said, Ramczyk played predominantly left tackle at Wisconsin. There is a huge bonus included in his contract that he gets if he moves over to left tackle. So I think I think that was the Saints' plan all along. I believe they'll shift Ramczyk over to left tackle, probably have James Hurst and Landon Young, at least as the roster sits right now. Those are two viable options at right tackle. Hurst has starting experience with both the Saints and the Baltimore Ravens at both tackle and both guard spots. Is he Terron Armstead or Ryan Ramczyk? No, but he's a very serviceable pro. And I know for a fact, and we heard them say it, that the Saints coaches really liked Landon Young and thought he made a lot of progress last year in training camp. Us fans didn't get to see it because as soon as Young got his first start, he went down with a broken foot to add to that avalanche of injuries. So, yeah, I think if Ramczyk doesn't work out according to expectations on the left side, again, Hurst and Young are both capable of playing left tackle. So you just move Ramczyk over to the right tackle where he's a proven All-Pro, and you try out Hurst or Young on the left side. That's if you don't draft someone. I am just saying, and this was the premise of my article, outlining such yesterday. I'm just saying that this offensive line is not in nearly the dire straits that a lot of the fan base or national media would have you believe, because the Saints have good players here, and they have versatile players here.
And it certainly could be worse off. And not a lot of guys, not a lot of teams have an All-Pro like Ryan Ramczyk. And you just seen Terron Armstead go to the Miami Dolphins with that $40 million guarantee. And it's like, we weren't willing to pay that. And I'm not too sure, long-term we would be able to afford it. That's part of the reason we would love to have him back. But it just didn't work out. And honestly, it might not have been worth it. But it just shows you that other teams are worse off, and they're willing to take a chance on a guy like Terron Armstead. I know he's a proven All-Pro, but he's also a guy that is consistently not healthy, does
Yeah.
miss games, and they're willing to put all that guaranteed money for him just to improve their offensive line and make a run. As you've seen, they traded for Tyreek Hill.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's proven that they want to make a run and compete in a very tight race in the AFC because the AFC is absolutely loaded. Now,
That's crazy, isn't it? What's happening over there?
I'm just glad the Saints are in the NFC.
I know.
And we have Tom Brady in our division, and I'm not even worried about that. I mean, obviously, we're 4-0 in the regular season against him now, but I think offensive line, in my opinion, it could be worse off, but I do think it is an important area to look at in the draft, and I think that's what the next step is for the Saints. I think free agency right now is pretty much done for. I mean, I know it's over. I mean, it's still going on, and there's still guys out there. But as far as free agency, all you big guys, big name guys, offensively are gone. It's pretty much dried up. I think the Saints' focus all along was the build for the draft. And you look through the roster, you look at our roster, majority of our core guys are homegrown talent from the draft. And I don't get where fans get a little crazy. Saints fans, they do this every year, but like we just said pre-show, it's a little worse this year because a lot of uncertainty. When's the last time the Saints even went out for a big splash? I would have to say Jarvis Bird. Look how that turned out.
Yeah.
DeMario Davis, I wouldn't consider he was a big splash at the time. He was a hit on free agency, but he wasn't a big splash. I think you would have to go all the way back to Drew Brees. That's the last time a big splash free agent worked out in New Orleans. And I think more people need to realize we are a team that builds through the draft and makes non-overwhelming free agent signings like a Marcus May.
Yeah, and I love the move of May. I've been writing about him with another publication. I covered him leading up to the 2017 draft, and I loved him coming out of Florida. I mentioned him in an article as a trade possibility at the trade deadline 2 years ago. Mentioned him as a free agent replacement for Marcus Williams last year before both players ended up getting franchise tagged, and mentioned him in an article early this offseason as a replacement for Marcus Williams if Marcus didn't get franchise tagged. So, yeah, I know all about Marcus May. I've watched a ton of film on him. Saints fans, you are getting a good player. He's a slightly different type of player than Marcus Williams, doesn't have quite the range, but is probably a better overall athlete. Better man-to-man coverage skills, so he's a guy that you can move, that Dennis Allen can move into the slot, like he likes to do with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson or P.J. Williams. So in Marcus May, you don't have necessarily the traditional free safety you had in Marcus Williams, but you have a better athlete, probably just as good at ball skills and turnover creating ability, and better versatility back in that secondary.
Absolutely, and I was about to mention that. And Marcus May definitely seems like the better safety as far as versatility, because you've seen where he did play that free safety role when they still had Jamal Adams in New York. Jamal Adams played more in the box as a strong safety. He played more free safety. And then once they traded Jamal Adams, his role kind of changed to more of a Jamal Adams role. Played more in the box, played underneath. It was great in the backfield. That's what I liked about him, was the versatility. He showed that he could cover deep. He might not be as good as Marcus Williams. Marcus Williams is probably elite in that category, covering the deep zone. He's probably one of the best safeties in that areas. But you look at Marcus Williams when it comes to tackling underneath, having to come up close into the box. That's an area where he kind of struggled, and that's why you needed a guy like Michael Jenkins to come in and fill in that role. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson as our Nickelback also plays in the box a little bit as well as a versatility, I would say. So, I mean, you had guys that filled in this role where he could just focus. Marcus Williams could just focus in the deep zone and do what he does best. Marcus May comes in here, offers versatility, and you can go a little light now with that safety area. You can try to go re-sign PJ Williams, which I don't think anybody else is maybe interested in him. Has been very quiet on his camp. I would assume that we will re-sign him. He's a guy that played well in the free safety role when I believe Marcus Williams was hurt, right?
Yes.
So you re-sign PJ. I don't know if Michael Jenkins is going to retire or not. I would assume he's not. I would assume there will be word on that by now, right? Not too sure.
Most likely, but the way Malcolm Jenkins restructured his contract, in fact, he didn't restructure. He flat out took a pay cut, and a lot of people believe that he could retire, shortly after the draft, or perhaps even after the June 1st, contract deadline for a lot of these contracts. I've not heard anything, but I'll tell you, I think at the very least, we're going to see Malcolm Jenkins in a Saints uniform and on an NFL field for the final time in 2022. I think at the very least, this was a token gesture by Malcolm Jenkins saying, I want to retire as a Saint. So either way, especially if the team doesn't sign PJ Williams, but I think even perhaps if they do, you don't be surprised to see the Saints bring in a safety sometime in day 2 or early day 3 of the draft.
And there's also good safety options in free agency too. That could be a great rotational depth for those safety positions. A guy like Terrell Edmonds from the Steelers. And I don't know if he has any interest in coming here. I don't know his whole background story, what he wants to do, but he's just an example. A guy who had 89 tackles, more than any defensive back we had this past season. And I think like 60 of those were solo tackles. He had 2 interceptions. But he's a guy that would be a great example, a guy you could bring in. And you said the safety in this draft class. Now, I wouldn't say it's very stacked with guys who can cover deep, but I would say these safeties are more guys who can come up and tackle, play in the box, kind of almost like a linebacker. And I think this year's safeties, a draft class, is what you have, and you could find a replacement for Malcolm Jenkins in this draft class.
Yeah, I actually like the safety class coming into this draft. You assume Kyle Hamilton of Notre Dame is going to be off the board in the first 5 or 8 picks. But outside of that, Jaquan Brister from Penn State, I love. Lewis Sine from Georgia is a thumper, a lot in the way that Malcolm Jenkins is. Daxton Hill from Michigan, Brian Cook from Cincinnati are 2 converted corners. Those are guys that'll give you a Marcus May, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson type of player where you could move them around in the secondary. And then you look in the later rounds, Smoke Monday from Auburn, Bubba Bolden, deep family bloodline from Miami, and Quentin Lake, Carnell Lake's son, great safety for the Pittsburgh Steelers back in the day. Those are all sleeper picks that'll be available in day 3. I actually expect the Saints to address the safety position at least at one point in this draft.
Right, and the reason why we are going over this, I think people are putting too much emphasis and freaking out on losing people like Marcus Williams and Terron Armstead, and not realizing the contract they were just given to go to their new teams. Right. Like I said, Terron Armstead, over $40 million guaranteed. Marcus Williams, I believe, close to $40 million guaranteed. I think it was like 37, 38, second most guaranteed money out of free safeties or all safeties. I'm not too sure on that, but I know it's
all safeties.
All safeties?
I think so, yeah.
So there you go. I mean, like, you can arguably say they aren't even our core guys. I wouldn't even say they would be our top 5 players on the team. Definitely top 10, but top 5, you could argue they weren't our top 5 players on the team, and you were going to pay them top 5 money, and I just didn't think that would be smart down the road, especially with a defensive-minded head coach now, and you do got 2 defensive coordinators. So maybe there is more leeway defensively. You could probably get away, just like how you got away offensively with Sean Payton, head coach. He could work with less, if that makes sense. I think what you've seen this offseason, maybe Dennis Allen and Mickey Loomis, Pete Carmichael, they're looking to upgrade the offense. And I think you saw that trying to chase after Deshaun Watson. They really want a quarterback, but we didn't get it. And, Browns offered $230 million guaranteed. Who's going to pass that up? But we re-signed Jameis Winston, and it's a 2-year deal. I believe, $28 million total. I forgot the guaranteed money, but we essentially talked about it in our messages. It's a prove-it deal, I would say. What would you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. Sean, we did talk about it privately. I look at it this way. Both the Saints and Jameis Winston kind of hedged their own bets. Jameis is not going to be a big cap hit for the New Orleans Saints in 2022. And we'll get into finances in a few minutes, I know. But if Jameis plays well, then the Saints aren't going to have to worry about scrambling at the contract deadline at this same time next year. Do we franchise tag Winston? Do we let him hit the open market? Do we try to get in a bidding war? Do we try to go after someone else? No, you don't have to do that, because you have a quarterback that hypothetically played well that's going to be under contract for 1 more year. So you can slowly work out a long-term deal if that's the avenue you choose to go down. If Jameis Winston plays poorly, then the Saints can move on from Jameis after this year without hardly any dead cap money at all. Go back to the drawing board as far as a quarterback answer goes, be it draft, chasing a high name in free agents, whatever. But the point is, they can move on from Jameis without taking a huge hit against their salary cap. And in Jameis's case, again, if I'm Jameis, I say, if I play well, I'm guaranteed a team that's shown good faith in negotiating long-term deals with their star players in the past. If I don't play poorly, the pressure is on him. He knows this. If I do play poorly, then I'm going to have another shot at free agency. But I'm kind of betting on myself that I'm going to play well and work out a long-term deal here.
Absolutely. And Jameis Winston, I feel like he can get the job done. He was 5-2 as a starter, and I do count that Buccaneers game where he got hurt. I think if he didn't start that game, and I believe he got hurt in the second quarter, right? I believe if he didn't start and play that game in the first quarter and some of the second quarter, I don't think we win that game, because he made a lot of big plays in that first half.
He did, and I think Jameis was on his way to a monster game that Halloween afternoon against Tampa Bay. He had a chip on his shoulder, and he was playing really well when he went down.
He was playing with nothing to lose, and the thing is, he was playing like that all season. And then people bring up games like Carolina and how he did bad during that game, and I don't put that game on him, because you had 10 different coaches out, you had all these players out in general. I mean, it was hard for anybody to do anything good that day. I mean, Sean Payton was struggling as a head coach. I mean, you don't have that supporting cast. Even a coach like Sean Payton needs his supporting cast around him. And I think you get a supporting cast around Jameis Winston, and I think it starts with offensive line. I know, we got some good players, good young players. I know we're at least, he's starting to get he has been getting the Andrews Pete, treatment. Everybody dogging him, but he has another year to prove himself, and I think he can. He can work on his game, because his rookie year wasn't so bad. I don't know what happened between his rookie year and second year. Do you have anything on that and why he struggled so much his second year as a pro?
No, I have no idea, Sean, and a lot of us, myself included, expected a big step forward from Ruiz in his second year because in his rookie year, along with the rest of those rookies, they were dealing with COVID, so no mini camp, a limited training camp, no preseason. So those rookies were literally thrown into the fire, and I thought Ruiz played pretty well, all things considered. He shared time with James Hurst. But when he had his opportunity, he showed that he could. I thought he struggled a little bit with positioning and his switches and pass cover or pass blocking. But as a run blocker, he looked really tough and really formidable. I did not see that guy last year. I saw a guy that was lost on his feet, constantly off balance, absolutely clueless as a pass blocker, and when asked to pull and get out in space, he really, really struggled again with his footwork and his body positioning. The Saints changed offensive line coaches. They brought in Doug Marrone, who's one of the best in the business at that position. And Ruiz is still going to be on his rookie contract. So Saints fans, for better or for worse, we are going to be stuck with Cesar Ruiz because he has another year to prove himself, flat out.
And I think that's fine. I really think that's fine. It could be worse. It really could be worse. And we do got a guy like James Hurst, and I know he could be starting at the tackle position, but I know they're going to address the offensive line in the draft. It might not be the first round, but there's a huge possibility it could be the first round. But I look in the first, second, or third round, they will draft some sort of offensive lineman, particularly probably a tackle, but maybe a tackle who also has some versatility, who could probably maybe play at the guard position. Andrews Pete, a guy, I like to say he's a hit or miss type of guy. He's really a guy, when he's good, but when he's bad, he's bad. But I think we can live with that. We just need to figure out our tackle positions. Obviously, we got Ryan Ramczyk. We just need to find our second tackle, no matter who's starting the left or right. I feel confident Ryan Ramczyk can start at either or. We just need to find another tackle. And then we'll go from there. Maybe a tackle, like I just said, who has versatility. Then you can see who fits in better positions. Maybe if James Hurst is better at the tackle position, you can maybe see what this rookie has to do with battling with a Pete or Ruiz, and see what he matches up with them. There's all kinds of way you can address that, and I think if they do address it, it would be in the first or second round, and I think that's the first thing we need to address because I feel like offensive line is important, more important than maybe getting a wide receiver in the first round, because I think wide receiver, this draft class is so loaded. You can find a number 2 guy on in the second, third, or even fourth round. And I seen you had an article about Marquez Callaway. He did struggle as another number 1 wide receiver, but that was to be expected because he's not a number 1 wide receiver. He was an undrafted guy, and he's a guy that strived when Michael Thomas was on the field. And I think a lot of our guys like Callaway, Deontay Harris, and little Jordan Humphrey, if he does get some playing time this year, they're going to strive so much better than what they did this past season because Michael Thomas is on the field. He's going to draw more attention, and I think that's going to help Callaway a lot. He could plug and play as your number 2 guy. I'm confident as long as Michael Thomas is healthy. Now, you do want the depth there. Depth is the key in this year's draft, and I think maybe we might have to hit another draft. Maybe not as good. I don't think anything's going to be always as good as 2017 was, right, but maybe something almost to that level. I think they're going to really have to hit it hard in this draft. And it's really going to test our scouting department, which they haven't really had to do since 2017 because we pretty much had a loaded roster ready to win with Drew Brees. And they draft a lot of guys based off of potential, I would say, instead of looking for guys who can come in right away and play. So it will really test our scouting department, test Mickey Loomis, Jeff Ireland, Dennis Allen as a talent evaluator. It's going to test everybody, and I think they can do it. I think they can do it.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. I think they can, but it's going to be a very interesting draft room. Not having Sean Payton involved, for the first time since 2005, really. Now, the scouting department, Jeff Ireland, and his scouting department, I think they've done a wonderful job of finding talent in the later rounds of the draft, and undrafted college players. Marquez Callaway, Deontay Harris, both undrafted. Same with Shy Tuttle, Carl Granderson, also undrafted. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was a day 3 pick. Eric McCoy was a second-round pick, who's played really like a first-round pick. It's the first round where this team has struggled since they drafted Lattimore and Ramczyk in 2017. So that's where I think the Saints are really under the gun this year, to kind of prove themselves and break out of that slump that they have been in. I apologize. Marcus Davenport was a first rounder that they moved up to get, and I don't think there's any denying that Davenport is a beast outside of the injury issues. But this team is going to have to hit on the. They have 1 pick in the first round, 1 in the second, and 2 in the third. They're going to have to hit big and find immediate contributors on at least 3 of those 4 picks for this team to have a legitimate shot at the playoffs in 2022.
Absolutely. And we're not asking for something like star level talent. We just want something productive, better than what we had last year, which wouldn't be hard to do. I mean, you considering what we had last year with all the injuries and stuff like that. My question is, what are we going to do to replace Alvin Kamara's production when he does eventually get suspended? Because I know I mentioned it on shows with you, the previous shows, that maybe RB2 is an important position to need offensively. Maybe a little bit more than a wide receiver, a number 2 wide receiver, just because RB2s might be slim. I don't know, but you did put out a free agency for running backs. There are some still good running backs in free agency, and there's some good running backs in the draft. Which way would you want to go in is finding somebody who can come in, take some reps from Kamara so he can get a break, and a guy who can come in and replace Kamara if he does get suspended. And he will get suspended, but when he will get suspended, would you rather go with somebody in free agency, or would you draft somebody like I don't think a Breece Hall would be there. He's going to be in the first round, but like a James Cook, maybe. This is an example out of Georgia. But which direction would you take trying to replace somebody of Kamara's production? If he does?
I do like Cook out of Georgia and Robinson out of Alabama a lot. But if I were Dennis Allen, I would want a running back in my room with bona fide starting NFL experience. And running back is a position that is still loaded with talent on the free agent market right now. You have Melvin Gordon, Marlon Mack, and Ronald Jones. All have been successful full-time starters in the NFL. All of them are under the age of 30. In fact, Mack and Jones are 25 and 24 years old. Those guys have not only been successful as a full-time starter, but they've also shown the willingness to work in a shared backfield situation. And obviously you're going to have to share carries and share snaps. Once Kamara gets outside his suspension, I for one am holding out hope that he slips under the radar and doesn't get suspended. But again, being real with the situation. If I'm Dennis Allen, I know I have Mark Ingram, but I'm also looking at a 31, 32-year-old Mark Ingram with a lot of mileage on those tires. I don't want Mark Ingram to be the sole shoulder bearer of my offense for a 6 or 8 game potential suspension that Kamara is looking at. You bring in a Ronald Jones, a Marlon Mack, that's my favorite, or a Melvin Gordon. All of them can be starters, and again have shown the willingness to work in a shared backfield situation. Outside of that, you have a Jerick McKinnon, Darrell Williams, or Wayne Gallman. And none of those three have been full-time starters, but they've shown the ability to carry a load for a few games when the man ahead of them has gone down. And just like Mac, Jones, and Gordon, they're versatile out of the backfield, so they'll be able to catch the ball for you. So yeah, if I'm the Saints, all along I have never wanted the New Orleans Saints to address wide receiver as a top priority in free agency. I wanted them to do that in the draft. I wanted them to eye up a tight end and a running back in free agency, along with a safety. They checked off the safety box. Now they have their opportunity with all that talent still on the board at running back. Now that we're going to be heading into week 3 of free agency, you're not talking about throwing around a lot of big bucks. You can bring one of those guys in on a reasonable 1-year deal where if they play well, they can hit the big bucks in 2023 while you get your value out of that money this year.
Absolutely. And honestly, going wide receiver to the draft is kind of smart in a way because they would be playing on a rookie contract. If you hit on a wide receiver in the draft and they produce highly on a rookie contract, that's major value in today's NFL where wide receivers are getting paid, and they're getting paid almost just like quarterbacks. They're valued as almost just as important as quarterbacks. Almost. You just seen it with Tyreek Hill getting the monster extension, getting traded. The Chiefs, I feel like it's smart on their part to move on because they do see a talented wide receiver class. And they also sign a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster. I know, he's been great in the past, but he's also hit a slump. But, he's a decent signing. They got Marquez scouting from the Packers, a guy we were trying to get, but it looked like we weren't trying to overpay. And I think that really sparked Saints Twitter in a way when that tweet did come out that the Saints missed out on him. I'm not really worried about that because, we do have the draft, but, we do got guys like Marquez Callaway, Deontay Harris. You can even re-sign Traquan Smith on the cheap. That probably is just as good as Marquez scouting. Marquez Vlad scouting. I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Valdez Scouting.
Valdez Scouting. I don't.
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm fine with it. But tight end. That's one thing we might have to address there in the draft. I don't know. I know you had some tight ends who are left in free agency that we could potentially sign. Got like Kyle Rudolph, a veteran, a guy of that caliber. So probably the last thing we'll address in this show today. What do you think they'll do in the tight end with their situation? Do you think they maybe rely on Big Fish Trotman to do it, or you think they're gonna bring another guy in? I know they'll at least bring another guy in, but as far as a starting tight end, what do you think they're going to go with?
Hey, Sean, that's the one position that I have no idea. I realize Saints Twitter and especially Saints Facebook have been in a fit all off season because part of the fan base wants to sign absolutely everybody. And if the Saints don't sign anybody, then they're not trying to win. Tight end, I admit, is the one spot that's made me extremely angry this free agency period. Because you can't name too many tight ends, rookie tight ends that have had an immediate impact in their first year. B, I've always said that you can sign a top tier tight end in free agency for about the same amount that you could get a mid-level receiver for in free agency. And that's where I hoped that the Saints would spend their free agency focus once they had the quarterback question answered. Hayden Hurst is getting $4 million a year. O.J. Howard, $5 million. Austin Hooper, $6 million. Even C.J. Uzomah from the Bengals is getting an average of $8 million a year from the Jets. You tell me that the Saints couldn't afford this. And when I say all those, that's max contract for those guys. That's if they hit all those bonuses. It made me absolutely furious that the Saints didn't try to pursue one of those guys and get them in for that price tag with the cap room that they've created. So they pretty much have no choice. You can bring in a Kyle Rudolph and he would be an upgrade to what you already have as a receiver. You could bring him Rudolph in on a 1-year deal. Probably wouldn't cost you that much, but it's a little bit of a roll of the dice, and you still need those guys behind him to develop. The tight ends that I previously mentioned, they were all in their mid-20s. So you could have brought in a guy like I mentioned previously, sign him to a 3 or 4 year deal. While he continued to develop, you have your answer at tight end for the next 2, 3, 4 years. So I think the Saints really dropped the ball on that. I don't know that they'll draft a tight end, certainly not in the early rounds, because there's nobody really highly graded at the position. And we've already mentioned tackle, safety. Defensive tackle is not a position we mentioned, but I think is right up there in a list of needs, along with wide receiver and potentially a quarterback. Don't rule that out. Those 4 or 5 positions, you only have 4 picks in the first 3 rounds. You got to let something slide by the wayside, and that's I think tight end is a position that if the Saints draft anybody, we won't see it until day 3 of the draft.
And that's really a bummer because that's something we already tried to do, and draft him in 3rd.
Yep.
Actually, to trade up into the 3rd round to get. And that was he was our last pick in 2020, right? 2020. Yep.
They ended up trading. They traded 4 picks to get Troutman, and then made a trade late in day 3 to draft Tommy Stevens. You're basically right.
That's right. Well, we'll see what happens. Hopefully, everything goes for the better. They have a plan to reload draft. And I'm not going to judge anything until after draft, and maybe until partially throughout the season, because ultimately you can't really judge until the product is on the field. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully they'll address the needs, make us Saints fans. I don't know what to do, but we'll see what happens. Is there anything else you would like to say, Bob, before we head out?
No, man. Sean, I had a great time chatting with you. As always, I think you put on a really underrated and a good, solid show. And I'm sure I know we'll be talking lots privately, but I'm sure we'll be talking again, leading up to the draft. I echo your sentiments. Saints fans, you amateur GMs and coaches, and I say that with a smirk because I do the same thing. We're not paid to make these decisions. Jeff Ireland, Mickey Loomis, Dennis Allen, before him, Sean Payton. They're the ones that get paid to do it. And I'd say over the last 5 or 6 years, they've done a pretty darn good job. So these Saints aren't done with personnel movements. So just be as patient as you can.
Absolutely. And Bob, I appreciate you for always coming on. I appreciate your time. I love having you on the show. That's why I keep asking you. But I appreciate your comment on the show. I really appreciate the comment. It's an honor to have you. One thing before we get out of there, where they can reach, just so people know that if people haven't heard yet.
Well, folks, if you already follow me and follow our work at Saints News Network, I want to say from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate it. Really appreciate the support. If you don't, then you can follow me over on Facebook. Just simply look for Bob Rose. I'm on Twitter at BobbyR2613. I publish all of my pieces on my personal pages, but I also funnel them through the Saints News Network. Find them on Facebook, Saints News Network, or over on Twitter at Saints News, where we'll have myself, Kyle Mosley, John Hendricks, and Brendan Boylan constantly giving you a comment. Opinions, predictions, analysis, and breaking news to the best of our abilities.
Absolutely. Y'all go check them out. And I appreciate your time, Bob. I hope you have a great day. Enjoy your weekend.
You too, brother. We'll talk soon.
All right. And there you have it. That was Mr. Bob Rose from Sports Illustrated. Covers the Saints at sports for the Saints Sports Network. Saints News Network. I'm sorry. Saints News Network. It is a Sports Illustrated sanction page, I believe. But yeah, y'all go check him out. He's always putting out great articles. His colleagues are always putting out great articles. These guys are very, let's just say they know what they're talking about, and they always are optimistic, and which is what I love about them. And they always put the facts up there first. So I challenge Saints fans to be a little bit more optimistic with this offseason. Like I said earlier in the show, Saints do not make big splashes in free agency. As far as I'm concerned, this is status quo. We do not re-sign big name guys who we don't view as a core guy for our team. The Patriots, for a long time, have done this, and they've been successful. Bill Belichick. You just see it with J.C. Jackson from the Patriots. Went to the Chargers, big money. They did not re-sign him. So the Saints have also followed that model as well. So we'll see what happens. I hope they hit big in the draft. I think they will. There's some big time talent in the wide receiver class. I don't think they'll hit up quarterback. I think that's something set up for next season. I think they're fully committed for Jameis Winston for 2022. And I think if they were to draft a quarterback in the first round, would really put a hamper on things. I think you got to be committed. See what Jameis does for 2022. Give him a shot. Give him a whole shot. In book, if Jameis doesn't work out in 2022 and you have to bench him, see what you got out of in book. You draft him in the third round. See what you got out of him. I know he didn't look great his first start, but honestly, the team was awful with a bunch of injuries. And let's be honest, the Saints should never play the Dolphins that game. There's just too many guys out. That wasn't a fair shot for in book. So, you look at it, Jameis Winston, in book, and you still got Blake Bortles. That's a good quarterback room to last the season. You got a top 5 defense. I believe this team can make the playoffs. The key is Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara. Can they stay healthy and can they stay unsuspended? So I think that's important. The offensive line is important as well. And then the rest, we'll figure it out. I think we'll figure it out. We'll see what happens. Now, that's going to be it for today. My name is Sean Militello. Make sure you give a thumbs up, a like, share, subscribe. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. You can also follow my personal accounts at Sean Militello, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. I'm always interacting with people. And I love to talk Saints football, LSU sports, and Pelicans. I need to do an LSU show soon with the new head coach hire with basketball, the women's basketball, with the season coming to end, how great of a season they had. I don't know too much about baseball, but I know I can get people on who can talk LSU baseball. And the Pelicans, man, the Pelicans. What a win last night. And we're going to talk about them soon. I haven't been able to watch them this season because of Valley Sports, and I can't really get them here in Baton Rouge. I can't get it on TV. I have to go on a bootleg website to watch them, and that's always it's not fun. Let's just say that, to watch them on a bootleg website because it goes in and out. But that's going to do it for here today. I hope everybody has a great weekend, a great day, and that's it here on Off the Dome Sports. We'll catch you next time.